Welcome to Perceptions Today. It's UK date 31st of January 2023, Twitter Space Chat 47, discussing Alan Watts, where we're talking about what would happen if you were in dream time for 8 hours but had actually spent 80 years in that environment. What would you do? We also have a subsection which we'll be talking about is Perceptions Today, the evolution of where we're going to take this platform and ideas. We're also going to be doing this on Call-In, which is a platform. The links are all in the events page of perceptionstoday.com. 8:30 UK time for over an hour, possibly. Everything's being recorded because we're going to put it down to a podcast. So remember, this is being streamed to YouTube, as I just mentioned. We're getting it down as a podcast, be edited and put out, but that's the kind of thing. Always remember, keep your private information to yourself, unless you're quite happy to divulge information, which will be out there for a long, long time. Perceptions Today is basically contemplating consciousness topics in all different areas. I am your host, Paul. We have two other co-hosts. We're going to go with Melissa first. Say hello, Melissa.
Hello, good morning from Australia, everybody. Hope everyone's well.
And we'll see them with your emoticons in a minute. And the second co-host, who's living and lurking down south in the UK, Ian D.W. Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here and good to see you all.
Excellent. I like to see reactions from the crowd, and the crowd are reacting well. I have to say that our aim is to actually reach people that have got questions, experiences, and also other researchers. So obviously we can overlap different areas and try and figure out the next piece of the puzzle. So if you want to do this, again, as I said before, check out perceptionstoday.com. You'll find our mailing list, which will keep you up to date with all the different live events if you want to get in on a roundtable, and also come into the YouTube channels and other social media. We've also been finding recently, oh, Seska, nice to see you down there as well. And I don't know YB, but we'll find out from them. We've been asked by an individual to see if people would like to fill out a questionnaire if they've had perceptional visual difficulties from the Perceptions Foundation. I think I got the name wrong already before I even start this one. I should have written it down, not just gone from memory. It's basically a way of collecting data for a university. And in doing so, it will be taking information, but your public information, as in your name and everything else, become good old held in one spot and not divulged to other people. And the actual data of what's gone on in the questionnaire takes about 30 minutes. I'm not sure if people want to get involved with this or not. I'm asking a few more questions, but looking through the data clauses for the UK, GDPR and everything else seem to be in place. But the information within that actual document says that it can be used later on for different journaling and also publications and things like that. So that's another thing to consider before we go that way. So that would be from the Perceptions Restoration Foundation. Knew there was a word in between. So that's for HPPD, which is hyperperceptional persistent disorder. So for imagine if you had done either LSD, other drugs, your body's chemistry misaligned itself, and lo and behold, you started to get like visual static on your eyes, or vision became doubled and things like that. And so this is where I'm going to be asking people. You can contact me privately or contact, obviously, Melissa or Ian, whether you want to be involved in something like that. And then once I find out the real nitty gritty bits of it, I can then let you go ahead and have that information to pursue it. But again, it's one of those things that we're not forcing anybody to do. Isn't that correct, Ian and Melissa?
Indeed it is.
No pressure.
But if you've got bank cards and you want to send money to us, I'm sure we're quite open to all those ideas. Or sweets. Sweets are good. We do like those. Right. So anyway, I wanted to take it as a layman's kind of way for 2023 agenda for the conversation. Some people have not really talked or even discussed Alan Watts before, so I'm going to go over a bit of a bio, then go through paragraphs of the actual 3-minute kind of speech he gave. And in doing so, it's a thing that I'd like as a thought experiment, because when he's going through it, you can imagine if no one's actually thought about coming into these concepts before and are thinking about consciousness goes on, or possibly there's more to life than just the standard 9 to 5, and people who've had other experiences that can't express them to, where, say, the average person who's gone through life being quite happy, never had any issues, etc., they can't do it. This 3 minutes really does allow people to entertain the ideas without being judged, as far as I'm concerned. We did it back in episode 2, as I said, but we never had the opportunity to record it. At any time, put your hand up. We'll obviously go around and obviously make sure you're in order. And again, on YouTube at the moment, I'm not sure, I'm not even looking on YouTube to see if there's any questions, but mainly see if I find them anyway. And also, I'm talking so much today. That's quite good going. Right, as we like to start off, the bio for Alan Watts. He's a prolific author and also as a speaker. Alan Watts was one of the most, let's say, intrepid Eastern, interpret the Eastern wisdom for a Western audience. He was actually born in London in 1915. And when he actually discovered that there was a Buddhist lodge close to where he was living, he wanted to go there. And at this stage, he was really young at that point, not even in his teenage years. Also, moving to the United States after that, he was wanting to pursue that information further and study. As he went through this, he then got involved with Christian religion to just add to the content that he was learning about. So he got into the Episcopal priest for a time and then relocated to Millbrook in New York, where he actually started to write books as well. And the pivotal book that some of you might actually know, and also it's really good to read, is The Wisdom of Insecurity, a message for an age of anxiety. Be interesting to see now if anyone has read it before, put the hands up or icons or some description, just to see. I'm taking time out to see whether anyone's read it, and so far it looks like no one can reach a phone. I'm going to check with my 2 co-hosts to see if they've read it.
Nope, sorry, completely new to me.
Okay.
No, I've watched a lot of Alan Watts's, but I haven't read any of his books.
That's good. So it's also could be found very easily. It's a book under 100 pages, very easy to pick up and just take in sections. So in 1951, he moved to San Francisco, where he began teaching his Buddhist studies. And then in 1956, he was picked up by a radio station to actually do Way Beyond the West. So that radio show was very progressive at the time. And by the early 60s, Alan's radio talks aired nationally, and it became part of the counterculture movement and was adopted by lots of different people in the spiritual environment. And then they kind of pushed him up to being a spokesperson for that. He wrote and traveled regularly, and unfortunately in 1973 he passed away. And as Melissa and Ian said, and many others will find, you can go onto YouTube and find there's a lot of information that's actually put about with him. So what else can I say? The LA Times put this about him, said, perhaps the foremost interpreter of Eastern disciplines for the contemporary West, Alan Watts had the rare gift of writing beautifully the unwritable. Watts begins with scholarship, intellect, and proceeds with the art and eloquence to the frontiers of the spirit, a fascinating entry into the deepest ways of knowing. So anyway, what we're going to do is go into the actual video content. Now, I want to see whether people want, because it's less than 3 minutes for me to skim through, or 1 page of A4 actually. Should we break it down into paragraphs, or do you want to hear the whole thing and we go from there?
I think break it down in paragraphs and then we can have discussions about each section.
Yeah, excellent. Hopefully it makes sense by the way that I've broken it up into paragraphs. Okay, so as the description was, he's talking about dreaming. It's come from an actual larger conversation, and also you can find it in larger lectures. So it starts off, I wonder, what would you do if you had the power to dream at night, any dream you wanted to dream? And you would, of course, be able to alter your time sense and slip, say, 75 years of subjective time into 8 hours of sleep. There you go, Melissa. Because that's the first paragraph. You can now interject.
Well, actually, you remember how I said to you, do you remember how I said to you, I think it would have been in the morning for you, but in the evening for me, yesterday, I said, I've got something really exciting to share with you. It was about a dream that actually happened. So I've been wanting a car for the last year now. And my auntie said, don't go and buy a brand new car. You can buy mine when my car comes in from, she's ordering it from Germany. And because of COVID and everything, she's been waiting like 2 years. And she said, you can buy my car. It's only done 45,000 Ks. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll buy hers. But because I've been waiting for so long, I sent a message. I think it was 2 days ago. So yeah, not yesterday and the day before. And I was like to my guides and I said, can I please get this car soon? If I don't get this car soon, I'm going to end up buying a brand new car in July. It's going to cost me a lot of money. And, you know, I just, can this please happen soon? Because I really want this car now. I've waited long enough. And I was just I don't like depending on other people to drive me places. Anyway, then I had this dream that I walked into a garage and there was cars everywhere. And then this man came up to me and he said, hello, I heard that you're looking for a car. And I said, yes. And then he disappeared. And then I was watching all these cars coming in and out. And then another gentleman drove up to me with a car and he said, here you go, here's your car, and handed me the keys. And then that was the end of the dream. The very next day, my mother sends me a message saying, your auntie just called, her car's coming in 2 weeks. Do you still want it? And I was just like, what? So was that
intention.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, that was a quick manifest. Or was it, you know, like I asked for it and it happened? I just thought, yes, I wanted to share that.
More like you picked up on the telepathy, possibly, that it was coming, rather than being materialistic, I feel.
Yeah, possibly. But I'm just really excited now because I'm getting this car in 2 weeks. And I think it was a beautiful experience that I was shown that as well prior. And I called my mum straight away and went, you're not going to believe I had this dream last night. So yeah.
Excellent. With that, I hope you can promise us that you'll take us out in the car when we're doing a live space and just toodle us around to see how it feels, the car. It'd be quite nice.
No, I won't do that because when my headphones go funny or flat and one checks out, you complain that my sound changes.
You don't have to talk. You just let us see as we go along. So anyway.
No, I will. I'll do it. When I get the car, I'll do it.
How many people you got in the car? We got all this Twitter space in here with us. Okay. Right. So paragraph 2. He goes, you would, I suppose, start out by fulfilling all your wishes. You could design for yourself what would be the most ecstatic life for love affairs, banquets, dancing girls, wonderful journeys, gardens, music, and beyond belief. And then after a couple of months of this sort of thing, in 75 years at a night, you'd be getting a little taste for something more different. And you would move over to an adventure kind of dimension where there was sudden dangers involved and the thrill of dealing with dangers. And you could rescue princesses from dragons and go on dangerous journeys and make up wonderful explosions and blow them all up. End of paragraph 2. So, I mean, there's kind of people that would want to do that, isn't there? We can have hands up if you want to get in on this conversation. Looks like I'm beating a dead horse today. Right.
I think, Ian, would you be interested in saving princesses and fighting off dragons?
Probably isn't the day to ask me that question because today I would say no. But maybe another day I might. It depends what kind of gear I'm allowed to have. If you can let me have some modern weaponry, like tactical nukes and things, then yeah. But if you're just going to set me in there with a sword, unfortunately, you're going to be one princess short in the morning.
You could actually save the princess by talking the dragon down and befriending the dragon. You could do all different variations of this. You don't have to execute my imaginary friend.
Yeah, you show me how that works.
If it's my realm, it works.
See, I'd like to save a princess because I like helping people. So I'll be happy to save, but don't ask me to kill a dragon or anything like that, because that's evil. That's hard. I don't know. But then again, they say if someone was to hurt your child, then you'd be surprised at what comes out.
Well, yeah,
from
there's
you.
circumstances.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would save a princess because I like helping people, but if it's a friendly dragon, then yes, I will talk it down.
She might be the problem. She might be asking him to do something that he doesn't want to do, or she doesn't want to do. The dragon.
Yeah, she might have controlling issues or something like that. She might.
Anyway, meanwhile, Diver.
That her dragon is a free spirit and can just fly around. It is a dream. It is your realm, right?
Yeah, precisely. Shadow Fox.
Well, yeah, if we're speaking about dragons, it wouldn't be killing them. I'd be riding them, right? And I'd be in search of all the universe's secrets within the multiverse. And yeah.
That would be the kind of thing. I mean, I would teach my dragon to do my marshmallows for me as well at the same time, which would be superb. Krista?
So I have dreamed about dragons, and it felt real because they weren't like cuddly, never-ending story dragon that you could ride around. It was terrifying, and I was consumed by the fire that he was breathing out of his mouth. So I think in the dream, the being burned alive by the dragon woke me up because it was such a massive entity in the dream that there was no way that I would survive it. So I don't, I would even see, even with the tactical nuke, I don't think I would voluntarily go up against any dragon, having still remembering that dream from like a year ago.
Wow. I mean, the whole thing is that he's trying to get people to get out of their mindset and see what would happen if they could actually go that far, altering things to what they could do and make it their fantasy. So coming into paragraph 3, it goes, eventually you get into a contest with your enemies. And after all you've done that for some time, you'll think up a new wrinkle to actually cause more excitement for yourself and to forget that you were actually dreaming, so that you would actually think it was real, so you'd be anxious about the outcome. Now that is a crucial thing. What would actually happen if you found out that you were consensually forgetting that you were dreaming, but you were experiencing life now, and then you woke up about it? Melissa?
That was going to be my next question. So what about those dreams? Because there are dreams that are mind-driven, something that's been on your mind, and then you have that dream. And then there are also dreams that they're so vivid that it feels like you've actually lived it. And for me, I feel like those dreams, the ones where they feel real, you have lived them, or you were living them in another realm, right? So because there's been times where I've had dreams where I felt like I was pregnant, and it felt real. I could feel my stomach, and I felt like I was pregnant. But then, I'm still waiting for that. That one didn't come true. But maybe I lived it in another realm, because it did feel real.
Melissa.
At one point, I felt movement in my stomach in my dream. So maybe I was pregnant in another realm, living that. So
that is a possibility. Before I get to Joshua, I was just going to say, maybe, and I've used this analogy before, if you got a bicycle wheel and put it flat and then had obviously the hub in the middle, spokes going out, your consciousness, and we're doing a very simple kind of analogy here, is that right in the center, but it's experiencing so many different existences out there as a spoke that sometimes you might realize that you're catching a glimpse of one of the other spokes, not actually what's happening now. And if you could actually pick up everything that was happening in all those different spoke lives, it'd be phenomenal. I mean, that could be any of your dreams. Again, it could be on the table at the moment because nobody can disprove it and nobody can prove it. So it's always a nice thought experiment for myself anyway. Joshua, welcome here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I heard most of what you just said, but it was like the only time that it's been that my signal's been fuzzy was when you were just talking. So I didn't get a whole lot of what you just said. But
Allow me to quickly go over it again. Is it clear now?
Sure.
Okay, so imagine a flat bicycle wheel with a hub in the middle with all the spokes out. So your consciousness is the hub. Each spoke is a different life, but at sometimes you're only looking down one spoke at that life. But at some point you might actually see there's other spokes, and those might be the dreams and the existence that you're living. And at the moment you can't disprove that and you can't prove it, but it'd be an interesting thought experiment. That's the summary of what I just said.
Yeah, thanks for going through that again. I think something very along those same lines. Imagine, if you will, join me on this little thought experiment. A spiral going inwards, concentric circles going inwards, and along that spiral from, it starts when you're born, and you're always only ever exactly where you are on that spiral, like now is always now. But each spiral, each place, each super strong memory or overwhelming experience, we could just say, leaves a charge that anchors you back to that place in your existence. And so as you are following along your spiral, you've got these strings that are holding you in place to that present moment that's no longer that's a memory of a present moment that's no longer in your present reality. And as you're continuing on your spiral journey of the present moment with ever greater levels of experience, you maintain those connections to those overwhelming / traumatic experiences. And so very much like what you're talking about with spokes, you have anchors to the places on the wheel where you, and I say wheel as like, if it's two-dimensional, you're talking about a wheel, but if it's like multi-dimensional, then it's a spiral. And so you've got these chains connected to anchors from those traumatic experiences.
Definitely similar to rock climbing and having your rope going through the eye socket and holding it there. Yeah, that's good. By the way, everybody, Joshua, worthwhile checking out his site and also the information. Which is the best Twitter one for people to actually look at? Because I know you've got two.
I've got a couple. I got suspended, and then I got suspended. But I found out it's because I have kind of a small account, and they thought that I might have been a bot. But I'm back. They unlocked it, so I'm at Joshua Blattman on Twitter. But I also write on Medium.com, joshuablattman.medium.com, and I think I'm trying to go Joshua Blattman pretty much everywhere.
You're quite happy to discuss very quickly your survivors website?
Yeah, sure. I started a site, I don't know, in 2015, 2016, that I've had a hard time keeping consistent with, but the site is survivors2thrivers.org. It's the number 2 in the middle. And the idea was that before there was all this technology, indigenous cultures throughout human history have had traumatic experiences, and they've had to deal with it in whatever ways that they had to deal with it. And so I started to explore ways that cultures throughout history have worked through trauma. And I went to a sweat lodge. This was when I was living in Seattle. I went to a Native American sweat lodge on the Mount Hood reservation in Oregon, and had a really traumatic experience with a car accident and getting lost and getting stuck in the snow. and my car breaking down, and then my car getting hit by somebody else who was stuck in the snow, and I was like, am I not supposed to be here? What am I doing? And but anyway, there's a number of podcasts that I put up with healing modalities that you probably won't find in the medical mainstream, from trigger point injections, which are becoming more mainstream, to PRP injection therapies, which are very advanced in the Western mainstream, in the medical mainstream, and things like primitive reflexes therapies for kids with ADD, so that their their physical animal can stabilize and normalize in a school environment. And don't even get me started about the school environment, because we're living through 50 years of the same old thing when the world is fundamentally
That's okay.
changed.
We won't get you to go through that now, because I've only got until 8 o'clock on this one. But the main thing is that you okay mentioning what I picked you up on?
I'm an open book. Just remind me what
so
you're speaking about specifically.
Basically, Joshua came to my attention due to the fact that at an age, he went through a coma, went through college, got all his qualifications and everything else. And because of obviously perceptual changes, we talk about head injuries and things like that, I became aware of Joshua. And again, Joshua, you might be wanting to know about Artisan of the Spirit, Shadow Fox, as she has a wealth of knowledge because of the indigenous connection she has between all the people she knows. And also she's a light worker, and her husband works with sound. And again, you got Krista Meyer, who happens to be a lucid dreamer, done guest spots with us. And obviously, just quickly looking down here, we've got obviously Brad, who brings a lot of information. Miro has a real wealth of information on philosophy and also theology. And the other people, obviously my co-host is Centered Awareness, who is a sensitive, and she's an energy worker. And Ian D.W. Hawkins is all into astronomy and obviously physics, and also looking to areas as well, which is fantastic. So that's kind of the background of all of us.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you up here. Ian.
Hey, sorry, you two. I was just going to answer my phone screen switched off. It's a pleasure to meet you too, or listen to you, Joshua. Thank you for coming.
Oh, the fun we have. Right. Okay, so I'll get on to the next bits and pieces. I just want to check with Melissa if she can hear us now at the moment. I know she just gave me a message. She's probably still on.
Yes, I'm back.
Excellent. I almost went to put myself on mute to read the next paragraph. That shows how well I've done this in a while. Okay, so people who are... Right, gotcha. You went on mute. Nice, Joshua. Thank you. All right.
I can finish up with a story if you want. I was just going to let you roll it, let you go.
That's good. No, you went to mute, which is fine. I'm quite happy with that. I saw you were off mute. I was going to ask you to go to mute, and you're back on mute. So that's great. So I can continue with the next 3 paragraphs, but I'm only going to do 1 paragraph at a time because that's how we said to do it. Oh, right. Everyone stop laughing. Right. Because it'd be so great when you woke up and then you'd say, well, like children who dare each other on other things, how far could you actually go out? What would you do next? How far could you take it? What dimension of being could you get lost in, of abandonment of your power, to become obviously powerless within a situation and have to go with that flow? What dimension of that could you actually stand? Could you actually ask yourself this? Because you know you'd eventually wake up. So you've got all that going on, thinking, could you actually take it to the limit? For example, like some of us who are adrenaline junkies, you might want to jump off something attached to a bungee cord, or you might want to be sitting there at a poker game and trying to see how much money you can win when you got absolutely nothing in the bank to do it. Those kind of ways of taking it. I'm still looking if there's any questions to join in, otherwise I'm going on to the next paragraph. Centered awareness.
No, keep going.
Thank you.
You have my permission.
Just as I wanted it. Right. Anyway, and after you've gone on doing this, you'll see for some time you'll suddenly find yourself sitting around in this room with all the personal involvements and problems, etc., talking with me. How do you know that it's not what you're actually doing now? It could be, because after all, what would you do if you were God? If you were what there is, the self? And do you punish us? the basics is to actually see the tests of, well, the texts of Hinduism. One of them starts without saying, in the beginning was the self, and looking around, it said, I am. And thus it is that everyone to this day, when asked after themselves, says that it is I. Which is quite
Have
true.
you- Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go on. Put your hand up so I can
just
tell what's going on.
Yeah, sorry, that was I didn't even think to do that. I'm so sorry. What was I going to say? I've read a few life after death books, and even when I watch the life after death series on Netflix, so many people say on there that when they're on the other side, that feels more real than living on this plane does. That this feels like it's the dream, and then that the other side is the reality.
Especially because they feel that here we've been dulled down. We haven't got that central input or sense input as well.
Yeah.
You can pull Shadow Fox in once you're ready. Yeah.
Because like that makes sense to me, because I think, well, that's why we're only here temporarily, and we go and we go on, and we go back home, and then we go on and we have many other experiences in other planes and things like that. So to me, I just think, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Sorry, I was thinking out loud. I'll put Shadow Fox. Go say it. I know you want to say something.
No, I'm actually being good this year.
Okay.
Actually, I was just going to say, like, life is but a dream. So really think about it. I mean, and this comes from experience of a near-death experience, right? Okay, it's like, yeah, life is but a dream.
I can go with that with the experiences that I've had. Again, very similar to taking it out and being pulled out of the film and put on the side to examine situations in that way, and then you get put back in the film again and it doesn't feel right, which is quite phenomenal in the way that it all works with people. And this goes on. Now, talking about near-death experiences, Anthony Peake on the 29th of January 2023, I'm only saying this because lo and behold, podcasts will go out later. If you go to his YouTube video channel, which is Anthony Peake, one word, and then the number 1 on it, when you're in YouTube, he's done 2, I think it's 3-hour sessions or close to 4 with Dr. Melvin Morse. And his speciality is bringing and resuscitating people back from the dead. And I'll do a very quick example before we go anywhere. One of the stories he talks about, and I put a clip up, there was a lake and a child was in the lake, submerged for 20 minutes, obviously went into a state which obviously is not, as far as we're concerned, with medical equipment called living, pulled from the lake, taken to the hospital. Didn't see any other nurses or anything like that. Nurses and Dr. Morse and others worked on the child. He was making phone calls, asking for crash carts and talking about other bits and pieces of information. They got the child back into a living state where the machines registered her and everything else. Then a few weeks later, the actual doctor of the child had her coming in for a visit. But at the same time, by chance, Dr. Morse was actually in the room but hadn't been talked about in front of the child since the incident, never knew about his name. And also the doctor hadn't introduced him either. But when she walked into the room, she said, I know you. You called for the crash cart. You said this about nurses and things. And he's got so many actual stories of how these things have happened and what people have seen when they've been, as far as the machines are concerned, dead and gone, but they've been able to bring them back. And his wealth of experience is amazing. So I'd recommend going to those YouTube channel videos and watching them. That's my nice public service announcement going on. So I'll go on to the next paragraph.
Hey, Paul, real quick.
No hand. What happened to the hand?
Oh,
yes.
Well, okay, there's a hand. There's a hand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize, everyone. Actually, in the medical field, when there's a drowning, especially if it's very cold weather, like freezing, the medical will pretty much say you're not dead until you're warm and dead, and they will continue to work re-stimulating the body. And during that time, because it's like a longer time frame where your heart is actually stopped. So when people do come back from, say, a cold water drowning, usually those people, I mean, there's no time over there, but usually what we've noticed is some of the information that they come back with is really detailed. There's a lot to recall. And I just thought I'd put that out there. The medical community will consider you not dead until you're warm and dead, which is actually a paradox, right?
Definitely. I mean, it's amazing what we can learn from people that are now in the position to not lose their, let's say, positions within either academia or working environments because they've either kind of retired. But obviously, while you're in it, you can't talk about these things because otherwise people will give the wrong impression, which is terrible because science is really flexible. It's never going to be that concrete. There's always going to be a slight learning something different, how to do something, or just a fraction more detail that you can get out of an efficiency of calculation and things like that. Going on to the last two paragraphs, and the very last paragraph is only a sentence, so I'm going to do them together. Otherwise, it get all very confusing at that point. And we're going to be, got 17 minutes. Good. So here we go. So if you were God, and this is the sense that you knew everything, you would be bored, because if looking at it from another way, we push technology to its furthest possible development, and we had, instead of, say, for example, going back to the old dial telephones on a desk, you could create a more complicated system where you could actually push one of those buttons, and what it would do is actually be labeled surprise. So it'd be putting you into an environment which would then cause you not to know what was going on. You'd actually lose all your memories of prior to being put into that situation. And because all perfectly know that the future is all well and past, they actually going onto it and saying that virtually it is only true future that is only the surprise. So if you were God, you would say to yourself, man, get lost. So I think it's a real fascinating way to bring it to people who normally feel judged if they're trying to express their opinions about things. Lucky enough, the communities that we're talking to and the people in the room are very open in this, aren't they, Ian and Melissa?
Yes, they are.
Yes. Sorry, I had my headphones on, but I was away from my phone. But yes.
That's okay. I just like we're doing so well, which is good. So I'm just looking. Info is here. Excellent. The info cipher. Nice to see you. Happy 2023.
Really nice to hear from you, man.
It's good to see you. We're going to be doing this again at basically UK time 8:30 on call-in and trying to go round. Myron, nice to see you. I'll quickly give you a quick invite to speak if you're there. People, if you've not seen Myron before, his whole background of art and sculptures and mysticism, as well as his own life experiences, again, you can find his bio there in the Twitter environment. But if you are listening through YouTube, it's Myron Dahl, all one word, MYRONDEYAL.com, and you will find lots of information there about him.
Yeah.
Hello, Myron.
I've got a few minutes, and at least I've been listening to the whole thing, so I just figured out how to get into it. So
that's okay. We're going to make you get into the other one when we go and try and play it on that platform, so that'd be fun. But you're quite happy with thinking on that concept of that there's been so many realities out there. What would you do? Because obviously the facts are Karen.
I think that whatever reality that you pick to follow, as long as it produces positive results, the cosmos doesn't discriminate between ideas, perceptions, journeys, any of that stuff. It's all one thing anyway. So if you're a Hindu, you're a Hindu. If you're a Christian, you're a Christian. If you're a Native American, you're a Native American. If you're me, you're me. I mean, as long as you follow the path that is designated for you, I think
I was going to say, it's the personal journey
to wherever you need to go, because it's all illusion anyway. So, in my opinion, it's all illusion.
Oh,
anyway.
no. I would agree with you, because for a very long time when I was small and growing up, it was the fact that, and again, I've just altered the wording for this, that as far as I know, you need 2 or more things to make a reaction to get a new item. So how do you get those 2 things or 3 things from nowhere to create a reality? And it's the same for that, and otherwise it's a paradox. So as far as I'm concerned, in 2023, January, I haven't got an answer for that. I haven't bumped into the information for it. So it's always been one of these strange things.
Yeah, I mean, mine came to me, of course, as I've described in the past, but and I never really doubted it. And yet, at one time, I had a kind of dual spiritual path, because I was a Christian and I was following what Charon had to say. So I had a kind of dualistic spiritual experience, and then it got to be a trifecta because I started following Hinduism, and then I had 3 to deal with, because I was teaching in church the Gospels, and I was listening to Charon talk, and I was reading the Upanishads and studying them. So, but then I kind of noticed that, as long as I listened to the positive aspects of consciousness, it all seemed to be the same thing. Then I was reading, ironically, Alan Watts, and he was virtually saying the same thing in one of the books I was reading. This is way back in the 60s. And he was virtually saying the same thing, and that since illusion is the order of the day as far as Hinduism is concerned, it just sort of made sense to me that they were all cohesive. They all had something to say, but they all said the same thing. I mean, sure, the positive negative plurality, was a little different from each discipline, but that's really irrelevant. What's really relevant is the positive aspects, and whether those positive aspects change your behavior. Because if they don't change your behavior, it's just a bunch of words. I mean, what good is that?
Very much. The experiences are, as we say, personal journeys. And if you don't evolve from that, sometimes the universe will just keep kicking you. And again, human language is not good enough to actually describe the way that it really works and everything else, but it will try and knock you into shape to do something for later on in life, whether those few months or years are a hardship, and then later on you're suddenly in the right place at the right time to give the right thing to the right person who goes on to do whatever. It's that kind of thing. Oh, the best analogy now that has just sprung to mind is, if you remember those mazes that are on a tilt table and you've got a ball bearing in it and you've got holes in the different kind of maze bits, somebody's tilting that, and that's the universe trying to guide you, and you're the poor little ball bearing that's being rolled around. Sometimes you get trapped in a corner and can't get out for a while until you learnt the lesson, and then lo and behold, you find the next hole and you're into the next reality. So I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
That when I did really stupid things, and I mean really stupid things, and I would come back to whatever discipline that I was involved in at the time, the answer was always the same, and that was, never mind about that, we have things to do. I got the same answer as if they were all Charon, and they were all telling me the same thing, which is, don't bother about what the negatives. We have positive stuff to do today, and we're not even going to discuss the negatives. So I never discussed the negatives of my behavior with Charon, because Charon wasn't interested. Charon was only interested in what we are going to accomplish today. And that corresponds with Hindu teaching and Buddhist teaching and you name it. And I felt so good that I didn't have to confess my sin and all that kind of stuff, because in Charon's mind, there was no sin. There's only today, now, this moment, and this moment is all there is. So let's work. We have things to do.
Yeah, because otherwise it's a wasted effort in those ways. If you can push yourself into doing more positive things than negative, because if you're sitting there dwelling on the negative, you're missing out on helping somebody else, because as we said before, well, I've said before, in my opinion, you're only kind of around to help others in a way, even if you don't realize you're helping them, which is one of the ways. We're down to basically 8 minutes before we're closing this room and then trying the next one. With this, if you want to get onto the calling app, you can listen through the browser, or you can put the app on your phone and come in and talk. But you can also talk via the actual browser as well, through microphones as well. Hey, I'm going to do a drinking game where every time you hear me say the word as well, you take a drink. I've just realized. So any questions or connection points that people want to discuss, and obviously I'll cut you off by 6 minutes time so that we get organized. But I'm really enjoying the fact that we're here for a new year. We're getting down to these conversations. We'll go through this conversation again with new people on the other platform if they turn up. And we'll show them what our kind of intention is and the way that we do things and have thoughtful discussions. And that's the main game of it all.
Now, is it true that you're going 8 hours here?
No, it's not 8 hours. The description was, if you could dream in 8 hours. If you dreamed for 8 hours, you could be dreaming 80 years. That's what I put as the kind of title. Please, my voice isn't ready for 80 hours yet, or 8 hours. I can't do that one yet.
I was wondering about that. I mean, that didn't make quite sense to me, but that's all right. One day we'd do that. I'll put everyone into a nice somnambulic state and they'll all be able to sleep nicely. It will be quite fantastic. I don't know that I'd want to talk about Alan Watts for 8 hours anyway.
No, I'm also going to be talking about the evolution. And so the quick evolution about perceptions today. Ian, myself, and Melissa, we've been kind of thinking that we need to expand it. And one of the ways that I'm really thinking is, yes, we're still going to have the conversations with people and find out and interlink with those areas. We're also going to find people that want to say, let's say there's a bunch that want to try lucid dreaming together and see if they get results. We'll have a subset of people that will join up, try it for a period of time, see what goes on, or whichever subject, see if we get results which work better as a group rather than individually. We're also going to start looking at the fact of, say, virtual conferences where we get multiple people coming in from different fields to see the overlap and have roundtables in that manner, or just having them discuss as well. We also want to find a way of different kind of experimentation with the community, because the community is evolving really well, that it's working outside of the actual talks and supporting people, providing information to help them out and doing things in a way, going off to other podcasts, coming back, telling us about what they do, and also what could be worthwhile for us to look at. We're also going to probably take the idea that we were doing of books and talks and videos and podcasts and do conversations about that, subset that for a different day and do those and have it as a resource that people can come and look at and talk about. And where are we? We're also looking at selecting individuals to actually come up with questions and then see if we can go off and bring back information for them, or we select somebody and send them off and go and get information, because sometimes people research in different manners. And if they're up for the challenge, we'll see what happens from there. Again, this looks like, as I said before, it's a marathon kind of idea of what we want to do with researching, connecting people and everything else. So we're not trying to sprint in a manner. So hopefully it could become self-financing at some point if we were very lucky. And again, we're looking for passionate people to see where we can go with this. And mainly it's an evolving amoeba at the moment that's just splitting into cells, trying to figure out what we're doing. Because we advanced so far since November 2021 with people connections, people that really want to help, people that are invested, people that want to do artwork for us, people that want to co-host, all these kind of things. It's taken us a while to try and figure out without wasting that excitement from people. So I'm not sure how this feels to you as people that are there. Again, Melissa and Ian, you can come in and say something if you want.
No, I'm fine. You said enough.
Are you agreeing or disagreeing? Because I've just rambled.
Sorry, I was talking and I was on mute.
Not being horrible, but I was doing something else entirely, and I missed most of what you said. Sorry about that.
Ian, I was listening, Paul.
You can't win them all.
If you would like to see the advert for new co-host, which is just now being, we're taking requests now.
Paul, I was listening. I heard every single word. I think it was a great idea. Yes, I completely agree.
I was listening too. My only problem, well, it really depends on how we structure it and all that kind of stuff. I don't think anybody would want to get into my head. I really just don't think so. So that would be difficult, I think. There are some difficulties there. They're going to run into Charon if that happens. I guarantee you, or some of my other allies. So, because that's happened to me before. I've sent allies to help other people, and
that would be interesting discussion about what they are, because obviously people can come at it two ways. One, that it's truth, two, that it's fiction, but it doesn't matter because it's not hurting them. But we understand where you come from and what you've gone through, and it will be possibly a good insight if you want to take it further.
Well, I mean, it's interesting.
Not today, obviously.
I mean, it is interesting that Charon has instructed me to start teaching people how to find Charon, their Charon. And that's something I never, ever wanted to do, ever. And all of a sudden, I'm getting this instruction to tutor people into finding that other self that's in their right brain, according to Tony, and which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's okay. It might be. But that's something that I've never done. I mean, I've done readings and tarot readings and I Ching rings and seances and all kinds of stuff. But to actually teach people on how to interface with their own Charon, their own spiritual side, that's something that I've never done before. And I've been sort of instructed to start thinking along that line. And then you bring up this whole thing about, maybe working on things, in a group. And that sort of coincides with what Charon had just told me, which is weird.
I would be up for that because I'm basically a sponge when it comes down to trying to figure out what happened to me throughout my life and everything else. And again, the period of time where I got knocked out with vocally over the months, I've been looking at this and it's just been a stronger feeling. It's not been something which I felt is wishy-washy. It's something which is a structure which needs to be done and taken forward. Shadow Fox?
Yeah, Myron, I'm grateful that you've actually made a mention that you were being, guided to start helping others. And I've done that for years, actually. I've always helped people in the very beginning processes of tuning in, identifying. And again, it's like opening the door. It's a doorway. Open the door, and people get a chance.
Come on, open the doorways of perception. You got to get it in there with your Aldous Huxley reference.
Nah, but yeah, no, for real, there are there are tools that can help people. And again, it's a way. You know, there's many other ways, but it is a way that have helped many people tune in and figure it all out. So
Well, I've always done readings with the tarot cards. I've always done readings with the I Ching. I've always done that kind of thing to help people. Like I used to do 25 readings a month. And
I'm sorry to break in on this one, but because I'm cutting this at 8 o'clock, we'll go to 5 past because I want to go and get a drink and get my voice ready for the next bash, which would be good. But obviously, there are people. I mean, can I see a show of hands of people that would want to investigate further with Meyer? And if you got your hands close to your icons, any icon to do? Good. There's one Seska. I think everybody else is driving or trying to do things. Nobody's put thumbs down, so that's always a good idea. I know Melissa would be up. Good. There we go. That's nice. Yeah. So we can discuss it further. Obviously, we're not putting everything in concrete. It can be in sand and change these things. But
yeah, I have to think about this a little bit, and I'm off to the hospital anyway. But
good luck.
Yeah, I'm going to need that. I have to. I'm working. Karen had just brought this up, and it's just an interesting synchronicity that you bring up this whole thing about sharing, inner processes, and that is really new. That is so new to me that, I mean, I've always done readings for people, but that was their consciousness, not mine. Theirs, and that's a different subject. So we need to kind of talk about this before we get,
definitely
carried away.
Oh no, I mean, everything that I'm thinking of is not to be rushed. Yeah. And it's to make sure it's the right people, the right kind of environment. And that's the thing, because that's the whole game about it. For example, we've got people here like yourself. They get information which is really strong, where I've realized over my years, I've had the nudges, very small ones, but have made lots of impact. And I never really realized I was being guided until I looked back on all the different events where I was put, what location, who I was talking to. So that's the kind of weird thing. You've got from the very minute kind of, you've been delayed by 5 minutes, but you bump into this person who would never have been there if you were on time, etc., to the people like yourselves who've got full-blown information access to almost like their own internet and across the board. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to progressing this idea.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting, this is really going to be a very interesting step. I mean, because it's been a very private process for me, and
you don't have to get involved. You can always just mull it over, and that's the whole thing. That's the beauty of this. We're not nailing people to the wall on this because everything's like jelly. You got to take your time when you're trying to nail jelly to a wall.
Well, the other side of it is that Karen's already given me instructions to get involved. So
you got hands at your back being pushed forwards again, have you? That's what you've got.
Yeah,
that's what happens to me.
I just can't believe you just brought this up, because this is exactly what in my meditations lately have come up, and I thought, are you kidding? I mean, I've sent allies to people before, but that was under specific conditions, and they needed help, and so I sent them an ally, and sometimes they saw it and sometimes they didn't, and of course, but the ally comes back to me when it's done. They don't get to keep it. The idea is for them to find their own ally. That's the whole point. So okay, well, I'm going to think about this, and I'm off to Never Never Land.
Well, hopefully you come back from Never Never Land, Peter Pan, and we'll sort this one out. Now, we're all going to go over to Call In at 8:30 UK time. If you've never been to Call In before, as I said, all you need is CALLIN.com. You can get into the browser, and you will see in the calendar that there happens to be Perceptions Day Extra going in. We'll be going over the same thing again, roughly, and see what other people think on this. And taking it from there. If you want to do it from your phone, you can download the app, and we can do that. Yes, Shadow Fox.
Do you have that? Have you tweeted that out? Is there like
It's the
link
second tweet in the thread on the pinned account. It's also in all the event listing. It's there.
Just bringing it to everybody's attention.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Prompting people. Thank you. Right, so thank you very much for all turning up, and I will see you all over in calling. I will probably make, obviously, Melissa, yourself, Ian, moderators, and we'll go through from there, so it'll be good fun. Once again, nice. Oh, I haven't spoken to MK Ultra. Have you got the opportunity to say anything at this point? If not, don't pick up, just put a thumbs down, because we're just dashing off for a quick break to get a drink or so. I've just read you by, see, MK Ultra. I don't know if you've got the opportunity. I wouldn't like you to just pop into a room and then we pop straight out of the room and close it, which is not good. Okay, so obviously you haven't got the opportunity to pick up at this present time. So I'll be closing this room down in 5, and then obviously we're over on Callin, which is callin.com at 1:30. Speak to you all soon. Bye.